Hey everyone, so in this video I want to cover something that's super concerning, and I want to make a couple things clear. One, I'm not telling you to abide by or not to abide by the FAA's upcoming restrictions on drones. That's a very personal thing. I no longer fly anymore. I've not flown in a couple of years, but I would love to get back into doing this again, but I'm definitely not going to do it if there's going to be insane rules like this and seemingly no workarounds, such as areas that I can fly without requiring to broadcast my location in real time to who knows what entities and who knows what people around me. Number two, I'm doing this and all the opinions in it are strictly my own. I'm just going to point out a few things. If you really want to get into the details of this, which I highly recommend you do, Bruce over at XJet has videos talking about this, some reasonable workarounds that do not require you to broadcast your location, as well as videos to other pilots who also get really into the rules about this. So I'd highly recommend you go and you watch those and educate yourself about it. And third, all the information that I'm getting from this, unless I say this is speculation or this is my opinion, is coming from the FAA's website, and I will have overlays to the website in the video, so that way nobody can say that I'm just pulling this out of thin air. This is coming from a government website. So let's get into it real quick here. Let's make this short and sweet. So for those who aren't aware, remote ID is effectively a transmitter that has to go on all drones as of mid-September. Now, without getting into the nitty-gritty details of this, the FAA is taking the approach that all drones are an issue, and I want to make it clear, the very tiny ones that do not have a very far range, that you cannot fly very far away line of sight, probably can't go above, you wouldn't want to fly them above the tree line anyways because of wind. Those all the way up to massive ones that theoretically are carrying people, I'm assuming, are, lumped under this umbrella. And I'm not saying that for extremely large aircraft it does not make sense, or aircraft that are going to be flying long distances non-line of sight, potentially through controlled airspace with permission, shouldn't have some kind of tracking system so air traffic control and other aircraft can be aware of them. But really tiny aircraft that you're just flying around the park, you're not going to be taking very far away, or let's just say I'm over at my parents' house and my dad wants to check on, a potential roof leak, or are the shingles going bad, and I take off my drone to literally fly it barely above the flight level of a one-story house. Theoretically speaking, me doing that past September, mid-September, would theoretically be illegal according to what the FAA is proposing. And for me, that's just, it makes absolutely no sense. For all the years that model aircraft have been flying, have there been incidents where there have been rogue pilots who've flown in areas where they shouldn't have? Yes. Does that also happen with full-size aircraft? Yes, it totally happens. And there's always going to be people who will fly in an unsafe manner, who will not abide by the rules, all that kind of stuff. But let's face it, as the old saying goes, a locked door only keeps an honest person out. If somebody really wants to break the rules and be above the law and be a criminal, they're going to do that regardless of what the punishment is. And my concern with this is the fact that if all drone pilots of all sizes have to broadcast their location to, it's not super clear as I could read it, to either strictly government entities, strictly local law enforcement entities, carrying down the street. Who the heck is this getting broadcast to? Is this 100% encrypted, or is this just over the air and anybody can tune in, like your neighbors on password protected Wi-Fi that you can get on to stream movies while you're walking down the street? There's issues like that, not to mention the fact that you could argue this violates quite a few constitutional rights, such as the right to, not have unlawful search and seizure. You could argue this violates that because they're unlawful, they're searching what you're doing in real time. You could argue it violates the right to self-incrimination. Let's say you're flying your aircraft and you're flying it in, and this has happened to me when I'm flying, the wind kicks up harder than the aircraft. All of a sudden the aircraft starts to sneak into control into an area that you're not supposed to be in, even though you are actively trying to fly home, and all of a sudden it pings, oh, your drone flew into restricted airspace. Oh no, thou shalt not do that. There's legitimate issues where you are trying to not break the rules, and you are doing your best to fly in a safe manner, but things happen. And lastly, it really just weirds me out that, in my opinion here, it's purely an opinion piece, that a government entity wants to know every single location somebody is potentially going to be flying a model aircraft at. I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here and say, why are they so wanting to know every single thing about what you're doing with it? Is it because they don't want you to find out something nefarious that's going on? Or is it just a misguided approach to keeping people safe? We'll never know, but after what's happened for the last 3 years, my faith in any government entity has pretty much gone out the window. I'm just going to make that very clear here. So those are my thoughts on the whole remote ID thing. If I scroll down a little bit onto the page, you can see that it's talking about what is broadcast from the aircraft is the ID, effectively like a tail number for an aircraft, the location and altitude, velocity, control station location and elevation, aka you, the pilot, besides the aircraft, time mark being obviously what time it is currently, probably like a time code in a video, and emergency status, whatever in the heck emergency status means. Does that mean that this is an emergency drone that's supposedly going to be delivering something to a medical emergency? I don't know. The other thing that's interesting is the FAA has claimed on their website that they're going to set up what are called FRIAs, which are FAA recognized identification areas. Drones without remote ID can operate without broadcasting. They must operate within visual line of sight within the, the controlled airspace for that. As it is, we're pretty much required to, you were required to fly line of sight anyways, which I don't think is a bad idea. So that way, if anything goes wrong, you can maintain visual on your aircraft. I never flew beyond line of sight ever, even for the very short time that I flew FPV. So that's, not a bad idea. And anyone can fly there, but the free airspace, as I'm going to call here, the FRIAs, can only be requested by community-based organizations and educational institutions. Well, the funny thing is, I go to the FAA's FRIA page, and they say, where are FRIAs? The FAA publishes the locations of approved FRIAs on the FAA's UAS Data Delivery Service, UDDS website. So I go there, and I type in the word FRIA, and what comes up? Nothing. So, FAA, if you are going to implement this absolutely absurd rule that we all know not everybody's going to comply by, and I am not saying that me specifically, I am going to just say screw it and not do it. Like I said, I'm not planning on flying anytime soon. But if you are going to implement this rule, I highly recommend that you set up areas that people can go and fly without having to broadcast to everybody in the Karen down the street where the location is, and set it up so that people still have the freedom to fly. Beginners can go there and learn from experienced pilots. Things like that. I genuinely think there are bigger things that you should be dealing with right now, but you're viewing this as a cash grab and a way to restrict a hobby that has probably gotten lots of people into flying full-size aircraft and have become pilots. Just saying, maybe go focus on the bigger issues. So, hope you guys found this informative. I will have links in the description to not only Bruce's channel, but also the videos that he recommended that you go and check out, as well as the pages on the FAA. So hopefully this will just be one voice in the sea of many. And if you have questions about stuff, I highly recommend that you go ask the people who are linked down below. They know more about this than I do. I'm just voicing my concerns as a concerned citizen, because I sure don't like the way that things are going. The last thing we need is yet more government invading our lives, trying to tell us what we can and can't do. Our country was founded on the principles that the British wanted to tax us over tea, and we said, the heck with your tax. We're going to raid your tea boat, chuck it in the harbor, and then declare our independence. I know, I really simplified it, but we didn't put up with crap like this when we were founded. Why are we putting up with it now? All right, I'm off my political soapbox. Back to 3D printing and laser cutting we go.